Why, hello there. This is Miss Murphy. I am here to demonstrate the next part of your watercolor memory abstraction. So, as we move forward, we are getting into adding another medium, which would be you can use a couple things of choice. I'll even allow, if you have colored pencils at home, you could also apply colored pencil. Um, in your materials package, you should have gotten a Sharpie. If for some reason you don't have that, you could also use a black pen. You do need your pencil for these next steps. So any kind of pen, pencil, I suggest, since we already used a lot of color in the watercolor aspect, to use something that's not going to detract from that. So we are going to use our black Sharpie, or a black pen, whatever you choose. And I am going to start out with my pencil first. So I suggest that you do that because you want to start kind of planning out where you're going to place your abstract, non-objective imagery. So this watercolor abstraction is based on a very important something that was a significant memory to you. So when you had to brainstorm about your significant memory of choice, you had to do 3 thumbnail sketches. So what I would like you to do is think about, and you had to think about 3 visual images that came to your mind when you thought about that significant memory. So I wanted you to do that as sort of a brainstorming strategy to get you thinking about images that you could incorporate into your abstract non-objective watercolor painting. So now that we are going to add those parts in, we need to consider that this is abstract, this is non-objective, and what I mean by abstract non-objective is that there are no recognizable people, places, things, or objects. It's really just suggested through the use of textures, symbols, patterns, mark making. So you want to represent those 3 things that you came up with, but in an abstract formula. So you want to think about, so I was thinking for my memory that I use was a memory that I have of going to Germany and going to the Zugspitze mountain with my father, which is like one of the highest mountains in Germany. And I started to think about the textures of the mountain, which I started adding down here. And I started with pencil. The other part that I'm going to add to that is water, because a couple parts of that memory where I saw the water, the lake from the Zugspitze, which I really recall as being crystal clear and really beautiful. So that was another aspect of that memory. I also wanted to add the texture of the place where we stayed. So I was thinking of like a wood grain, because it had kind of a cabin feel to it. So I might do like a suggested wood grain area in here. But I just wanted to show you, this is why we wanted to come up with also 3 layers. So I'm just going to do a little demonstration over here. I'm going to add a little bit more of my mountain texture. So one thing I will say is you can also, think about repeating some of those textures in different areas so that you create a sense of unity throughout your composition. So I really kind of looked at all of these little sections that my watercolor naturally and organically created throughout, and I use them as a resource of my, areas of where I'm going to start and apply my texture. So I'm adding a little bit more of my texture. And I want to say that I know I did a sketch of my mountain, but I also looked up some pictures. So I looked up some pictures to inspire me, which I'll show you in class. But I looked up some images of that mountain because I wanted to get a glimpse of some of the textures in the mountain. So I'm actually looking at one on another screen, but I'm suggesting the mountain here because it's abstract, non-objective, and it's, recognizable to me, but not everybody's going to know what it is, but the idea and the concept is there. And this is something that often, occurs throughout abstract non-objective art. Sometimes it's really just pure line, shapes, and colors, but other times artists are using abstract imagery to suggest ideas or concepts or, something that it's related to in terms of texture, colors, choices. Our color choices are also part of this because you had to think of colors that relate to the mood or feeling of your memory. So just showing you down here how I did this part, and then I went in and with my Sharpie to just refine some of those areas that I already drew. So really take your time. The reason why I say it's good to go with the pencil first is because you want to be able to visualize it and think about what it looks like first. So I'm just gonna go in here and add a few little textures, and sometimes because of what I already did with the watercolor, it already happens naturally. Some of these textures I'm just pulling out of what I did here and creating the textures from, the corners and edges that I already created with my watercolor. All right, so I just wanted to show you how I started this out. I still have a while to go, but what you want to think about is, how to create a sense of unity. Now that you're adding like your dark color, you might even decide to add some suggested marks with colored pencil. You can turn it in different directions and see how it looks, but notice how I only have some of the black marker here and here, but how could I create a sense of unity? Maybe I need to add, I'm going to do my wood grain texture somewhere, I think up in this corner. So I'm really going to think about like where I'm going to apply my textures, symbols, or patterns. Remember, if you're adding symbols, these are non-representational. These are abstract, non-objective, organic shapes and forms. But just remember that you want to think about 3 things that you visualized for a reference when you did your brainstorming for your abstract non-objective painting. So, and sometimes you can go a little bit outside of that. You might decide to just take some of those lines and just, go with the flow here. That's the fun part, here about abstract art, is that it's very instinctive. Sometimes I just kind of go with wherever my feelings are taking me in this piece, but keep in mind that you want to still think about the compositional aspect of, creating a sense of unity and, balancing everything out. So what I say helps is kind of turning it around in different directions. So that's your next step in terms of your abstract non-objective. Remember, you can use marker, pencil. If you have colored pencil, you could also use that, maybe like a darker color or some other color to add suggested things. Something else you could do is even consider, going back in with some watercolor later in some areas, but remember that your marker is going to bleed a little bit. So you might want to consider doing just like some areas, like if I wanted to add a little more texture, do like some dry brush in some areas here. If maybe later I consider some things that I want to do to just kind of bring out some more of those values throughout afterwards, just be mindful of the marker and that it will bleed if you go over top of it. So there you go, and good luck with your next steps.